Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? It's proclaimed the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to our Steelers Divisional Round Recap. I am your host, Jim Sella, in studio with co-host Jay Dash. If you're a Steeler fan and you're listening to this, you may just kind of shut it off right away because you're pissed. If you're a Broncos fan, you're probably going to listen and gloat.
Yeah, or a Cincy fan.
They're a bunch of freaking worthless human beings, so they shouldn't even be allowed to be on the internet.
Yeah, I was glad James Harrison came out and was the bigger man when he responded to all those Bengals comments.
Although, have you seen that Steelers fans went and blew up Isaac Redman's Twitter account, blaming him for the loss?
Isaac Redman?
Isaac Redman. Because some Steeler fans really are so stupid, they just seen the number 33 and thought it was still Isaac Redman. And then when they went on Twitter, all they did was search for a Steeler player with the number 33. And I mean, he was posting screenshots of these tweets, saying, I wish it was me who was playing in that game, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't because I've been retired. That poor bastard just got harassed.
Yeah, the reason they lost was because of that fumble, no doubt about it. But Fitzgerald Toussaint, he came up big last week, and he was the only one to score a touchdown in this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had that 15-yard run to set him up at the 1-yard line and then pounded it in for the touchdown. So I'm not blaming this on Fitzgerald Toussaint at all.
I agree. The fumble is the main reason why the Steelers lost the game, but you can't blame Toussaint. He's the fourth-string guy, just promoted off the practice squad only a few weeks ago. He's barely touched the ball at all. I've heard some people say he was carrying it like a loaf of bread. He could have done a better job, but I thought that the defender did a pretty good job in stripping the football at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And really, Denver's defense played a pretty good game out there. All game long, really. I know the Steelers had a chance to win in the end, and it looked like they were going to if they just held on to the ball. But really, that defense came up big all game long. If you look, the first 3 times the Steelers scored, the only thing they did was had the big play. There was the 40-yard reverse to Martavis Bryant to set up one of the scores. There was the 58-yard reception by Darius Hayward-Bay to set up one of the scores. And there was another play by Bryant where he had over 40 yards to set up a score. So really, the offense just couldn't get it going in the game unless they got that big play to set them up in scoring territory.
Only 2 quarterbacks threw for over 300 yards on Denver this season. Can you name them?
How many quarterbacks?
2.
Big Ben and Big Ben.
Please believe. The offense did put up 396 yards, but like you're saying, it was the big plays that really got him most of that yards. Mark Madden was talking, I don't remember the exact number, but you could go back, and if you add up, there's like 4 or 5 big plays that account for about 70% of the Steelers' offensive yards. So other than that, they were struggling to move the ball. Denver's defense is just so good. Did the Steelers lose faith in Jordan Todman? I'm not saying that they thought he was somebody great, but the guy only ended up with 5 carries. I know he only had 6 yards. But it was such a close game for most of the game. I was surprised that they were still trying to air it out as much as they did.
Yeah, I like Todman, so I was a little surprised. But he had that one run where he lost like 5 yards or something, and then they really never gave him a shot after that. But if you look, man, this Steelers defense played great in this game, obviously. But the first 2 scores for Denver to make it 6-0 at that point. The Steelers couldn't get anything going. They punted, and there was, a 42-yard return to set them up at the 30-yard line.
Yeah.
And the defense shut them down, held them to a field goal. And then the next field goal, same thing happened, but it was just the punt. Jordan Berry looked horrible in this game.
Oh, yeah. 2 of his first 3 punts were for only 27 yards each.
Yeah, and one set the Steelers up to the 31-yard line. The defense stopped them, held them to a field goal. That's all you can really do. This defense stepped up in a huge way this game. Now, Peyton Manning, he wasn't great by any means, but he played pretty well. The players on offense that let them down the most on the Broncos side was those wide receivers. They were dropping everything.
6 drop passes.
Yeah, and most of those came in the first half.
I'm not criticizing the defense at all, but they did have a tough time stopping the run this week. Denver racked up a little over 100 yards rushing. Not that that's, crazy amount or whatever. It's not like they gave up 200. But all year we've been limiting teams to, 90 or less around there. And, it just sucked, really. The Steelers' defense was getting worn out. Cam Hayward, He's in the top 3, I believe, in defensive snap counts for defensive ends in the league. Stephon Tuitt is somewhere around the top 10 or top 15. We need to get some depth on this D-line. I'm not saying a starter. I love our starting D-line. Even McClendon, who I hate, played very well this year. The Steelers just really need to address depth on that D-line coming in this offseason.
Yeah, really. I mean, in the offseason, I'd look at all defense right now because obviously you're losing some corners too, most likely.
Yeah.
So, and you look at the offense, I mean, the depth looks outstanding on the offensive side to me.
Even our 4th and 5th string running backs aren't too bad.
Receivers galore, it seems like. I mean, they're set on the offensive side. I'm all defense this time around.
I wonder if Beecham or Foster will get a new contract or if they'll roll with Villanueva at left tackle.
Now, I say they're set on the offensive side, yet I always complain about the offense and always talk up the defense. But
they're set personnel-wise on the offense.
It's Todd Haley that I'm worried about. And in this game, it was part of it. I mean, you got a 4th and 1, and they've had trouble on 4th and short all season long, whether it be Mike Vick in a quarterback or Big Ben in a quarterback. They just don't know what to do on 4th and short. We seen with Vick, they threw that 40-yard out pattern for
40-yard, 1-yard out pattern.
And when Big Ben came back in, they tried that dive, I remember, that one week, and we were wondering why they would run a dive with Big Ben, but yet an out with Michael Vick. And now this week, what do? They go for a Hail Mary on 4th and 1. Now, that I did hear Big Ben say that he wanted to go to Heath Miller on a short pattern, but he wasn't open in time, so he had to go deep. But you got to come up with something better than that on 4th down. And then later in the game, you decide to punt from your own 33-yard line, and you just punt it pretty much out of the end zone and gain 13 yards on it. So it's just bad coaching there, and that could have been 6 points right there, and then you only need a field goal at the end of the game.
I didn't like it on that second drive like you were just talking about when they decided to go forward on 4th down. I understand it. I don't even know if I'm criticizing it because it's a gutsy call. I get it. If Big Ben makes it and, completes that 1st down pass, Tomlin looks like a genius. But they didn't, and they gave up a chance for points so early in a game. In the playoffs, man, I do not want to give up a chance for points. It would have only been around a 49-yard field goal for Boswell. I know they haven't been letting him kick real long field goals all year, but I don't understand why. He kicked the ball into the 3rd row off the tee on the kickoff at one point. I know it's totally different kicking off the tee than kicking when people are trying to block it, but if he's strong enough to kick it into the stands, he's definitely got a strong enough leg to kick a 50-yard field goal. I just don't understand it, and especially the punt, where you let Barry punt the ball, blast it out of the end zone. You gain basically nothing. You'd have been better off just going for it and turning the ball over right where you had it.
Well, at that point, I could see why they were punting. He could only punt about 27 yards, so if he booted it 27 yards, they stick him down at the 3-yard line, but it didn't work out like that. But you could look at it two ways. Yeah, you're playing in Denver, and you've seen he was kicking the ball well out of the end zone, so you're probably going to have a little bit more distance on your field goals. But there was a lot of wind swirling, too, but it didn't seem to affect Denver at all.
Vince McManus was draining him.
Vince McManus. What'd he do? 5 for 5 in that game or something?
So, dude. He was booting them, too.
That? Yeah, he was booting them. Now, they did go for a fourth and short. I think it was 4th and 3. I'm talking about Denver at one point in the game as well from the Steelers' 37-yard line. So they passed on a field goal as well. So, no, I didn't mind them going for it on 4th and 1, but their 4th and 1s have been terrible this year. So I would have kicked a field goal at that point, and I think it would have been smart to kick a field goal at that point. Take as many points as you can in this game, because it was going to be a low-scoring game. We knew it from the beginning.
And I know a lot of things could have turned out differently if they did kick that. But there at the end of the game, when they were racing down by 10, they got partway down there, and they kicked that field goal to get down by 7. That drive would have been the 7 drive. You could have just kept going with it because you already had that 3. And yes, whatever. It's a what-if situation, It's easy to look after the game and say this could have happened or that could have happened. But still, in the playoffs, you take every point you can get. And me personally, I would have kicked the field goal.
I tell you what, I was very, very glad that Tomlin decided to kick that field goal at the end of the game there to give you time, if you did recover the
Right.
onside, to drive down the field. Usually coaches don't do that. They'll go to the very last second to try to score that touchdown and then leave themselves no time. And I've seen Tomlin do it before too, and I always hated that. And I finally seen him kick the field goal and leave some time to try to throw Hail Mary, because we've seen Aaron Rodgers this week. You can do it. I mean, it's possible.
How about we were close to getting that onside kick? I know we touched it early, but I mean, it's a bang bang play, so I'm not blaming whoever touched it early. But if that ball goes about another yard and a half, it's at that distance, and there were no Denver players really right there. So that was almost a really nice play.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
What about Manning diving on the ground like a little girl, and then the refs allowing him to get back up and throw that pass to Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah, I definitely think he was down, no doubt about it. But you know what? We said it last week with the Cincy game. It's not one play that decides a game, and you got to come back from that and make a play. And it hurt at the time, but it's not why you lost the game at all. It was just a bad call.
Just a bunk-ass play. Manning.
But Manning, I mean, he did the job of not turning the ball over. That was the key for Manning. He didn't go out there and turn the ball over. Neither did Ben, especially with the wind swirling like it was. That was tough on both quarterbacks. Both had some bad passes in this game, I remember. But in the end, the Broncos forced the big turnover, and that was the deciding factor. Just the one turnover in the game, right?
Yeah, just the Toussaint fumble.
It's hard to say what on offense really cost them outside of that fumble, because the receivers look good all in all to me. Obviously, Bryant stepped up in a huge way, had a big game. Now, he dropped a couple passes as well. He wasn't perfect or anything, but it wasn't really going downfield too much. I know we said they had the big plays, but it all came from around the line of scrimmage. Obviously, the reverse to Martavis Bryant. You know, another play I was pissed at about Todd Haley was there was a 3rd and 2, and they ran a second reverse with Bryant.
Yeah.
And it was for no gain. So that ended the drive right there. I think the coaching was really bad in this game, to tell you the truth, outside of there at the end of the game just kicking that field goal.
Yeah, I thought the coaching was a little suspect. Like I said earlier, I thought the call on 4th down, they should have went for the field goal. At some point in the game, I almost would have just told my punt returner, Marcus Wheaton, to stop trying to catch it and just letting the ball freaking hit the ground and roll and take it wherever you got it. That muff punt was scary. I wasn't aware of the rule.
2 of them.
The one that rolled almost into the end zone. I didn't know you could muff a punt and then still recover it in the end zone and get a touchback. Thank God.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That rule should be changed.
Yeah.
If you fumble, I mean, that's on you.
If it touches your leg, the other team can pick it up. But,
Yeah, but they can't.
They can't advance it, but
Yeah.
they can at least
So,
take possession.
It's
Like,
weird.
It
I don't know.
It's such a weird rule. But that is why all year long we've been talking, why is AB back there? Why is AB back there? Well, we never really got to see Dree Archer try to return a punt because they didn't really let him. But we know Jacoby Jones can't do it, and we know Marcus Wheaton can't do it. So God knows what they're going to do. That's something they need to look for in the offseason. I'm not saying draft anybody real high, but they need to look for a player they can bring in who can help either be the full-time punt returner and get AB out of there, or at least be able to fill in when AB can't do it.
Yeah, he had another muff punt. It was something like the 11-yard line, then it went back and went out of bounds at the 6-yard line. So that set the Steelers' offense up in a terrible situation. But I tell you what, when the Steelers get pinned deep in their own territory, they don't even try. They run 3 runs and then they punt and set the Broncos up at their own 50-yard line or something like that. I think it was the Denver 47-yard line after they punted down to the 3. All they did was 3 straight runs and then just punted the ball away and set the Broncos up in great field position. You got to try to create some space there to put your defense in a better field position.
It almost felt like, I mean, I know we didn't run it 35 or 40 times, but like old school Steeler football where we're just trying to win the field position battle, keep it close, and then win it at the end. But we weren't winning the field position battle because Jordan Berry looked like the worst punter in the league on Sunday. It was just a really bad week for him to have his worst game of the year.
Well, it was all special teams, really. Barry looked terrible. Not Boswell. We'll leave Boswell out of this. But Barry looked terrible. One of his punts, it was returned for 40-some yards. That's not on him necessarily, but that set them up in a terrible situation. Marcus Wheaton couldn't catch the ball on punt return, so the special teams really let him down this week. And really, if I had to point at one factor in the game, I would say special teams or coaching.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a little bit of sloppy play. in each facet of the game. The offense fumbled it. The defense didn't quite hold against the run like they could have. The coaching staff blew a couple calls, and special teams outside of Boswell just looked like they didn't even practice. So it was just like a little bit out of each side was just enough for the Broncos to squeak it out. Because nothing Peyton Manning did impress me. I'm not saying he played like garbage at all. I mean, he played well enough for them to win. He didn't turn the ball over. He was able to read the defense at the line of scrimmage and, check into some better plays and some runs and get him out of bad situations. But he didn't really have a lot of zip on his passes. It's not like I was fearing his arm throughout the game. I mean, Johnny Manziel was able to put up 300 yards passing against the Steelers, and then Peyton Manning couldn't even do it. I don't think Manning has a lot left. This has got to be his last hurrah.
Well, he did a great job coming out and beating a Steelers defense that really was on top of their game, if you ask me, in this game. They shut him down completely the entire game pretty much until the end there when they really needed to shut him down, and they were unable to do. But again, I mean, you can't expect them to do it every single time, and I know it was an important situation, but they were just on the field. The offense turns the ball over. I mean, that's a tough situation for this defense, and there's no way in hell I'm going to blame them one bit for this loss.
Yeah, the fumble by Toussaint, the offense had only been out there about a minute and a half, I think it was, minute and 32, somewhere around there. So it's not even like they gave the defense time to do anything. I mean, they walked over, they got a drink of water, and then Keith Butler was yelling at them to get back out on the field. And like we said earlier, the D-line not having a lot of rotation. Cam Thomas just did not provide the depth that they wanted this year. They were worn out. It's a hard thing to do for a defense to stop. And then I know there's a lot of people who are pointing, well, Denver's defense was able to stop Pittsburgh on that because Denver's defense was able to sit on the sidelines while Manning drove him down the field for like 7 minutes on that last touchdown drive. So their defense was completely refreshed, at least as refreshed as you can be at that point anyway.
Yeah, but in the end, I'm not going to really point to any single player for this loss. There's no way to do it. Like I said, the defense played great. Even Big Ben, I mean, he wasn't perfect or anything, but he did look better than he had the past several weeks, in my opinion. So, I mean, he was making all the throws, too. Big Ben, he looked pretty healthy. You're hearing he's not going to have surgery.
Right, yeah, I read an article before we came on the air. It said no surgery, just rest and a little bit of rehab. Some of the Broncos players are saying he pulled the old okey doke and didn't have any injury.
No, I don't believe that at all.
Me either.
Because why would you come out of a game last week? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? That makes no sense.
It's just like AB faking a concussion. He knew if you fake a concussion, there's a possibility you can't play the next week. You just don't do it. When players fake injuries to get timeouts, they fall down and grab their hammy, not their head.
James Harrison had a good game. Jarvis Jones looked good again.
He had 2 good playoff games. I think he's played his way back onto the roster, maybe at a little bit more of a discounted rate than he,
Does he have a year left on his contract? I heard
I
them.
think he has an option year, or this is his last year, and the Steelers were debating whether they were going to cut bait or just keep him. So I am pretty sure
I'd keep him for his contract at least.
He's going to go. Well, this will be obviously the most expensive year of his contract, because it's the last year of his rookie deal where you end up getting the most money.
Right.
So they might restructure or sign him. I wouldn't be too mad if they signed him to a 3-year deal at, maybe $3 million per, $4 million per. I don't know what the exact going rate for a outside linebacker is at the moment. Was the season a disappointment?
No, not necessarily. I mean, what are you going to do, man? You were without your top receiver, without your 2 top running backs in this game, and you still made it a game. You had the game in hand down to the very end, so what more can you ask for, really?
I agree. With all the injuries they had, all the obstacles they had to overcome, I mean, they played so many playoff teams in the regular season. I know they didn't win the division, which is every team's goal every year, but they still got further in the playoffs this year than they did last year. Do I think one playoff win is acceptable for Pittsburgh Steelers fans? No. We require greatness, and we want a Super Bowl every year, but does that make this season a disappointment? Absolutely not. I think all the guys played their hearts out. I thought James Harrison gave it more than I thought he had left in the tank. He is signed for 1 more year. He has said he's not ready to make a decision whether or not he's going to come back. But I read that he was crying in the locker room, and I'm not making fun of him at all. He was crying in the locker room, and Mr. Rooney walked over, and he just looked up with tears in his eyes and just said, "I'm so sorry we couldn't do this for you." Debo loves this organization.
Bring him back as a coach.
Him and Joey Porter will start getting in fights with the other team's coaches.
Can bring back Kevin Green, too. Why not?
Brother.
But I think one thing this team needs to work on is just working the ball downfield more methodically. Now, I still like the big play and everything, but if you can have a more methodical approach and add in that big play, that's when you're going to become that 30-point per game offense. They just don't have it. I mean, it's either the big play or it's just not happening on that drive. And I think that starts with Todd Haley, really. I think they got to get rid of him, bring in a new offensive coordinator. Now, it might take some time, and next year wouldn't be the year where they really stepped up into their own, maybe. Maybe it takes another year, but I think you're just delaying the inevitable if you keep Todd Haley around, because they just make terrible decisions at terrible times. Like I said, they can't get it done on fourth down. Really, sometimes they can't get it done on third and short as well. We've seen it this week with the Bryant reverse on a third and short, which is ridiculous. They decide to go for it when they should kick field goals. They just got to become smarter on the offensive side, and I think that point total will start to go up.
Just look at the Patriots offense. I mean, Brady does it time and again without big play guys. Like Gronk will take one to the house on a short pass because he's a beast and runs through people.
But we have those guys too.
But you don't see Edelman running 80 yards downfield to catch the pass. You see him catching the pass and running 10 yards and then catching the next pass and running 10 yards again. You know, they can dink and dunk their way down the field, and I agree with you. Don't do it all the time. But it has to be an element in your football team, especially this week when we knew we were going to struggle to run the ball. That's an extension of the running game. That's why New England never has 1,000-yard rushers, because they throw 3-yard passes that turn into 6-yard passes and give you 2nd and 4 or 3rd and 4 instead of 3rd and 7 when you ran the ball twice off tackle and got nowhere.
And that's only going to open up the deep ball more.
Right. I don't think Todd Haley will go anywhere, but I do agree that he should go somewhere, and it ain't here. Is there anybody you would give the least valuable player of the game to?
Jordan Berry.
Agreed.
He's garbage. Marcus Wheaton you could give it to, too, because he screwed up, but Jordan Berry totally put him in terrible situations.
Is there a player of the game for the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, Martavis Bryant was a beast out there. Everyone's saying with Antonio Brown out, really the Steelers had no chance to win this game. And I know, they did cover the 6.5 that we originally set the mark at or whatever, but it was 7.5 at game time. And really, it was the Steelers winning this game until the very end. And Martavis Bryant stepped up in a huge way. So I'm going to say him offensively. And defensively, I think the entire linebacking core played pretty well in this game.
Easy gave the Steelers a 0% chance at kickoff of winning the football game. At halftime, I asked him what the percentage is now, and he said 85.
85. Jeez.
All in all, a sad ending to a great year for the Steelers. I'm not going to hate. I'm not going to hate on Toussaint. Fans, anybody out there blaming Toussaint for this loss, don't be like Bengals fans. We persevered through a lot of adversity. Just be happy that the Steelers were in the playoffs and they do win as much as they do. Yeah, we didn't get a Super Bowl, but guess what? We've only won 6 out of 50. Is this Super Bowl 50 this year? So like we don't win them all. It'll be okay.
Peyton Manning just kept doing what he's been doing all year. Not playing great, but winning football games. I mean, that's what he's done all year, man. You can't deny that. In fact, he's winning more this year than he has when he was a great quarterback, it seems like.
I don't hate Denver at all for beating Pittsburgh. I'm not one of those people. I guess I'd rather see Manning beat Brady because I don't want Brady to get anywhere near another Super Bowl victory. He's already been to too many Super Bowls. It makes me nervous every time he goes. But that's going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, I'll be rooting for Denver.
Please believe. The line's -3 right now, New England. Disrespectful. Anything else for the fans?
Nope.
Well, fans, we will be doing a Steelers season in review. We'll be talking some free agents. We'll be getting into some mock drafts a little bit later. I am not releasing a mock draft early. Like, I think it was Peter King or somebody from Sports Illustrated already has the Steelers taking a tight end. That was before the game even took place on Sunday, and they didn't even know where the Steelers were going to be. We are locked in at the 25 spot in the draft now. But no mock drafts. Don't worry about that until around April. Any questions or comments you got for us, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube and click and subscribe. Don't go away just because it's the off season. We have Steeler football year round.